Welcome to Backwards Incompatible, the retrospective podcast brought to you by the letter G. My name is Chase.
And my name is Garrett.
And unfortunately, due to some unforeseen circumstances, Justin will sadly not be joining us tonight. Oh well.
Man, that sucks. I wish Justin was here. Now it's just us two nerds.
I mean, this is essentially what the first 15 or so episodes of the show was, so we're going back to the past on this one. Back to basics.
Just the two of us.
But yes, we are here today to discuss Half-Life, the very first Valve game and revolutionary PC title.
And I find it pretty funny that this is actually our first podcast on Valve Company.
Suffice it to say, Valve is a studio that I have a lot of personal attachment to for one reason or another. I have a less favorable opinion of them as a company nowadays for reasons we'll get into in a minute, but how you been, Garrett?
Oh, I've been doing good. I've been starting at the new place in my job and been kind of just playing Half-Life.
Yep, same here. I just started a new job of my own. A lot of changes going on in our personal lives.
I feel like summer's the best time for change. I don't know. I think it's the warm season that really brings about that change.
Times they are a-changin'. Speaking of change, let's have a moment of silence for E3. All right, time's up.
Yep.
Because, as we all know, E3 was canceled this year and most likely will stay canceled for the foreseeable future. I don't see E3 coming back. And in its wake, a lot of game companies and developers have pushed out their own directs and showcases over the last few days. Like Summer Game Fest was just a week ago.
I haven't been up to date on my recent game events, so tell us about it a little bit.
Well, there were some interesting highlights there. The new Prince of Persia game that was announced looks pretty cool. I'm hoping it'll scratch that Metroidvania itch I've been feeling ever since Metroid Dread, so I'll probably pick that one up. A game that you and I have our eyes on, Lies of P, the demo for that was made available the same day as Summer Game Fest, and I downloaded it, and yeah, I'm really liking it. It's very much Bloodborne, but with Pinocchio, and a little bit of Full Metal Alchemist thrown in.
So would you say it is like a From Software type game, like a Dark Souls type game, in terms of feeling like one, or would you say it has enough characteristics to separate it?
Yeah, gameplay-wise, it's very much invoking Bloodborne specifically. I do think the gameplay does have enough of its own personal elements into it to differentiate it. It doesn't feel like a complete clone or ripoff. It's very much doing its own thing, and I think a lot of Souls fans are going to be pleased with Lies of P when it finally comes out. Although, that name is just so silly and dumb sounding, Lies of P. Yeah, the game itself has a lot of potential, and I'm really looking forward to playing the full version. The demo itself is really fun, although, if I'm being perfectly honest, I've been stuck on the boss in the demo.
How dare you call yourself a true gamer when you can't even defeat the first boss in a demo?
I 100%ed Elden Ring. I think I have some
I'm
room.
sorry. Have yourself a nice day. I didn't mean to disrespect your holiness.
Don't you ever disrespect me again. Do you know who I am? I'm an alpha gamer.
He is the Elden Lord.
What else? Oh yeah, at the Xbox showcase, Starfield was shown off, and yeah, I'm really looking forward to that one, but I'm approaching Starfield with some trepidation just because it's Bethesda, and Bethesda has stumbled over the years.
Fallout 76.
Even Fallout 4, you could argue they took issue with Fallout 4, but that's neither here nor there.
I don't know. I enjoyed Fallout 4 personally. Maybe it just holds a special place in my heart as a survival.
I'm also really curious to see where Square's taking Final Fantasy VII with Rebirth, because the trailer for that they showed off, there are some interesting divergence from the original storyline there.
Final Fantasy 16, though, I don't really play too many Final Fantasy games. I have only played 13, parts 1, 2, and 15. I did like 15, even though it was kind of
you never played 7?
Oh, believe it or not, no. I have never played 7. I just know the story.
We'll have to change that.
Yeah, that doesn't mean that I can't still play the new game, because the new game I have nothing I know about. I only know Cloud and them from Kingdom Hearts.
Well, ain't Sephiroth the dark part of Cloud's heart? There are several things wrong with that sentence, chief among them being the fact that it's Goofy of all characters. That's just Kingdom Hearts in a nutshell right there.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
All right. Half-Life, released on November 19, 1998 for PC PC, developed by Valve and published by Sierra Studios.
Oh, wow. It's so old.
I mean, it's not even the oldest game we've talked about. I think the first Mario Kart game is technically the oldest game we've talked about.
But still, to me, before 2000s was definitely a different, I want to say, mindset for gaming companies in terms of development.
Well, a lot of why the industry shifted in so many ways, at least for first-person shooter games, is because of Half-Life. When this game came out, this rocked the industry to its core. Because the whole conception behind Half-Life, why Gabe Newell and a lot of Valve developers wanted to make Half-Life in the first place, was due to an increasing dissatisfaction with storytelling elements in FPS games. One of the developers at id Software of Doom, they said something along the lines of, story in video games is like story in porn. It's expected to be there, but it's not the reason you're playing. And Gabe Newell took that personally. Originally, Half-Life was scheduled to release in November of 1997, a year prior. It was shown off at E3 that year, but a lot of Valve developers were very dissatisfied with how the game was turning out, so they delayed the game by an entire year to better refine and improve upon it. So, right there at the beginning, Valve time was already established. In a lot of ways, Half-Life very much does feel like the next step evolution in FPS games from Doom. If Doom represented the first generation of first-person shooter games, Half-Life very much ushered in the second stage.
Yeah, I agree. And the story is also told in a manner that is not really like cutscene sort of thing. It's kind of like you do it and you just listen to the NPCs that are around you, which I find it really immerses yourself into its story even more.
Yeah, Half-Life's approach to cutscenes are very interesting. They're not really cutscenes, they're just NPCs talking to you. You can still freely move around and interact and do stuff as the characters talk to you.
Mm-hmm.
The reason that came about, I believe, is actually due to time restrictions. Valve didn't have time to actually make full-on cutscenes, so they just went with that, and they took a liking to that approach, so they stuck with it.
I feel personally that with at least first-person shooter games, there shouldn't be as many cutscenes. It would be nice to do what Valve did with this game, because what Valve did was sort of your cutscenes were basically your loading screens. Whenever you passed a certain point on a level, it would...
Yeah, it's part of the lasting influence of Half-Life on the rest of the genre. I know BioShock took a very similar approach, and I guess Halo as well to a certain extent. It definitely contributes a lot to player immersion. Although this can result in moments where a scientist will be giving a whole monologue of exposition and Gordon will just be running around in circles swinging a crowbar for no apparent reason.
Bonk.
Yeah. Well, since I brought him up, let's talk about the main man himself, Gordon Freeman. Originally known as Ivan the Space Biker in the initial concept art phase.
Oh, wow. I'm glad they went with Freeman.
Yeah, so the original model for Gordon, or rather the protagonist of Half-Life, was very different. It was just a dwarven biker looking dude called Ivan, and I'm like, that could work in another life, but in this life, the Half-Life, we are stuck with this beatnik nerd, Gordon.
Who apparently is 26 years old.
27.
27 years old, sorry.
That's one of those things that when I first played this game years ago in like high school, I'm like, 27? Yeah, that's a decent age. And now that I'm getting close to 27, I'm like, wow, that's kind of young.
Mm-hmm. Boy has accomplished a lot, and I'm surprised because he's like a scientist.
He's got a PhD in theoretical physics. Mm-hmm. He's a graduate of MIT.
Not to mention he's working at a secret base, and he knows how to handle weapons and be a literal doomslayer.
Let's talk about his appearance and design, because every ideal character design should tell you at a glance everything you need to know about this character. And Gordon Freeman, let's analyze him. He has glasses. Wow, he's a dork.
He's smart.
The fact that he wears glasses, that right off the bat tells you, okay, glasses are stereotypically associated with someone of higher education, someone who is in a lot of media. Someone with glasses is often someone who is much more in intuitive, much more knowledgeable. And while Gordon himself doesn't necessarily display that in the game, like you said, the fact that he's working in a massive research facility and is involved with this highly dangerous scientific experiments. Yeah, so you look at Gordon and you see he has glasses, so that infers to you, okay, this is probably a guy that works in a laboratory of some sort.
And as well as his face too. His face looks like he does look like he's been seen through hell. But you also see like his facial markings shows that he looks older than he actually is, which in real life, that can be due to stress.
I also feel like the fact that he has facial hair, like a bit of a beard, that in itself, I feel like a lot of video game protagonists, especially around this time, didn't have facial hair.
And didn't he have like a salt and pepper kind of look to him? Or am I just having a Mandela effect here?
That might just be like the environment and the lighting and stuff, but
can we talk...
Go on.
Okay, I was just going to mention the suit, though, that he has on.
The HEV suit.
Dude, that's looking fly. Not gonna lie, if my work had that, I would definitely wear that all the time.
Carrying on the conversation of a character's design, telling you what you need to know about them, let's talk about the HEV suit itself. The HEV suit has this very military but also industrial design to it. Its color scheme is black, orange, and a little bit of red. And that right there tells you, I guess, about the kind of world that Gordon Freeman inhabits. It's a very cold, very industrial kind of world.
Even if you never played this before and when you first see it, you get this feeling that you're already going to be in at least a place with a lot of metal and a lot of moving parts. Considering its bright colors, those bright, vibrant colors catches human eyes to like avoid from running people over when they're in those big rigs moving big pieces around. So I kind of like that.
Yeah, it kind of gives me similar vibes to Isaac Clarke from Dead Space, where this isn't necessarily your space marine military guy. This is a blue collar kind of guy that Gordon Freeman is. Another noticeable detail on the HEV suit is the lambda symbol on the chest plate. Now, the reason Valve went with the lambda
symbol.
Bit of a tongue twister there.
The reason why we bring that symbol is because it represents decay in Half-Life equations of either testing out a drug in today's field, like from chemists or archaeologists who are trying to find how old something is. And really, I like that the symbol is very clean if you kind of catch my drift.
Right. It's also pretty eye-catching to the average player since it's a symbol you rarely see used outside of mathematics or scientific equations. It's also often stylized to resemble a crowbar, the little ends at the end of it, so I think I and a lot of people who have played Half-Life associate the lambda with Half-Life. If you ever see a lambda, you think of Gordon Freeman.
Oh, yes.
Maybe that's just me, but let's see. During development, Valve took a lot of inspiration from Doom and Quake, and I think the engine of Half-Life itself is a hybrid between the Quake engine and Valve's own modified version.
That talk about resourcefulness.
The story of Half-Life is just a story of mods becoming games, and even after Half-Life, a lot of Valve games began as mods. Counter-Strike and Team Fortress began as mods of Half-Life, which was essentially a mod of Quake, so it all goes back to Quake.
Wow. Is that how the theories come around?
A lot of the alien design, the aliens of Zen, they were inspired by the creatures' descriptions in Stephen King's book, The Mist. Did you ever see the Mist movie?
I did, and I really enjoyed it. I thought it was very interesting to see the characters in a crisis, but the monsters that were outside, the designs were so bone-chilling.
Also, the ending to the movie just really messed me up. I'm like so close yet so far.
Yeah, don't watch it like without some people to comfort you guys if you haven't seen it before.
This is something that stood out to me as well. A lot of level design, particularly for the elevators, were taken from the movie Akira. That ever iconic, what is that industrial, is that a real elevator design? The one that goes diagonally, the big platform looking elevator kind? Is that
I think
real
so.
thing?
I think there's at least some stuff.
I just know that in anime, a lot of that is inspired by Akira because there's a very well-known scene in Akira featuring that type of elevator. Mm-hmm. I think Valve specifically cited Akira's elevators as the inspiration for those segments. I think also the whole design of Black Mesa in general takes some from Akira as well.
And I do like going through those corridors in Black Mesa. Can we talk about the level design as well as the sound design of those levels?
Yeah, Black Mesa. So I love Black Mesa as a setting because it's basically the corporate civilian version of Area 51 when you think about it.
Mm-hmm.
It's located in New Mexico.
Wow, New Mexico has a lot of things in terms of aliens. But speaking of Black Mesa, I did notice something as I was going through, well, first, let's start at the beginning. When we go through this futuristic type of lab, seeing all these different machines kind of moving these heavy parts, it feels lived in.
Let's talk about that opening segment of the game where you're in a cable car. It's a little quaint by modern standards, but at the time, this was a huge graphical and technical showcase of PC gaming. Valve and the Half-Life games in particular just feel like the ambassadors of PC gaming to a lot of people. The Half-Life games have always been showcases of what PC technology at the time can really do in comparison to, say, consoles. And the first Half-Life, this opening segment just shows it off in full force here. Not only does it cement into you that this isn't going to be a regular game by the fact that it's not just a cutscene. You're free to move around the train car as much as you want. There's not really much to do other than move around, but it's there. Look around at a bunch of stuff that if you don't turn the camera, you potentially miss.
And I didn't realize that until I was kind of halfway through. Really, it's nice to see that mechanic back in the older days, kind of like see how it was like for, gamers before my time.
And not only that, but it just shows off the scale of the Black Mesa facility. And you're seeing all these scientists and security guards going about their day-to-day activities. I always like this in disaster or apocalypse stories where it begins with it was just a normal day. All these scientists running away, getting trapped into rooms. I think right at the beginning, there's a security guard that gets locked out of the room he's supposed to go in. I wonder what his story is. One thing that always stood out to me is at one point you're going over this canyon outside of the facility and you're right above a helicopter. I want to know what's going on with that helicopter. My personal headcanon is that's how the G-Man entered the facility. I know that, spoiler alert, the G-Man is not human and he can basically teleport, but I like to imagine that in the beginning of the game he's trying to keep up the pretense that he's some type of government or corporate executive, so he arrived through more mundane methods. Speaking of the G-Man, the first time you see him is in this cable car. He's on one of the other cable cars that you briefly pass. He's just adjusting his tie.
I didn't know that. I thought he started happening around Zern or something like that when it started bleeding in.
Nope. The first appearance of the G-Man, he's right there on Gordon Freeman's commute to work.
Oh my gosh. That means G-Man definitely started something. He definitely did something.
We'll talk about the G-Man when we get to him, but oh yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of cool stuff to show off here, and it goes on for a while. I think this is almost 10 minutes, this opening segment. You definitely get the sense that Black Mesa is more than just a typical laboratory. There's rockets, there's missiles, there's a lot of advanced technology everywhere.
Beep boop, springy buttons, and oh, by the way, we have Albert Einstein. Some of the models for the scientists are so fun.
What do you mean? There's only 3 types of scientists in the world. Which one are you? Are you Albert Einstein, Bill Nye, or Neil deGrasse Tyson? Although I must say, Black Mesa, kind of a sausage fest going on right here. There's no female characters at all in this game.
Yeah, there's no female characters at all. It's just, it's a sausage party.
Did you play the tutorial, the training course? Because there's a hologram of a woman. I think her name is Gina Cross.
I don't think I did. I just pretty much put on the suit and just kept going. I didn't realize there was a tutorial course. I thought it was just going to have me figure out everything.
Well, the training course was separate from the actual game. When you started a new save file, it would ask you, do you want to take the training course? So it wasn't in the game itself, but the instructor of the course is a hologram of Gina Cross.
Cortana.
Speaking of Gina Cross, I think she was the protagonist of Half-Life Decay, which was an expansion pack for the PS2 port of Half-Life, I believe. But yeah, I think the only other women in Half-Life are the female ninja assassins you encounter.
Those spec ops, I like to call them. Man, they were cheesy bastards.
When I first encountered them, I half expected them to start going on and on about Zanzibar and pleading for Gordon to make them feel alive again.
Just start fighting hand to hand, and Gordon Freeman, being as Giga Chad as he is, starts parkouring.
Now that I think about it, there is a little bit of Shadow Moses in Black Mesa kind of vibes. Maybe that's why I kind of assumed associate the first Metal Gear Solid with Half-Life, because Black Mesa, there's just something about this game, Half-Life in particular, that I find oddly calming and relaxing. It's almost like something about Half-Life, its atmosphere, its vibes, has always been strangely relaxing to me. Like, yeah, there's a lot of combat and it can get pretty intense at times, but I chalk it up to the general lack of dialogue in a lot of sections of the games. There's not really a whole lot of talking going on, and when there is, it tends to be fairly brief and kind of calm, because the voice actor's delivery, especially for the security guards, is very disconnected and lacking any sense of panic or urgency. A security guard will witness two of his buddies just get massacred by aliens, and he'll just turn to Freeman and be like, hey, if we make it out of this, I'll buy you a beer.
Can we do one? I'll be security guard. You'll be Gordon Freeman. All right. Ah, don't kill me. Oh, it's you, Gordon. Hiya, Gordon. How are you?
Gordon, I'm tired.
Your brawn and my brains were sure to survive.
Why do we have to wear such ridiculous ties? I guess it does add a sense of campiness to the game that a lot of the NPCs are just so disconnected from what's going on around them. And even when they do react, it's so monotone. But I think the scientists are doing a good enough job, but yeah.
Yeah. It's just so funny, I feel, with these voice lines. I feel like the scientists are definitely, I want to say the fun ones to interact with. No, the security guards are the more fun.
Well, the security guards are helpful because they'll follow you and actually shoot at stuff.
It's not just that, not because they're usefulness, but I don't know. I find their dialogues a little bit more, I guess, relatable than the scientists, just because, like, even though they complain about work and whatnot, I mean, who doesn't complain about work? But I just love those comments that they'll make. I don't know. It's just, when I'm with a security guard, it's like a night out with the boys. You know what I mean?
I guess. But the scientists, I kind of feel bad for a lot of them, because the scientists just feel like the Hans Mole Man or the Kenny of Half-Life, because throughout the game, they are just getting slaughtered and killed by the new threat that the game throws at you. And not even then, like, Gordon unintentionally kills a couple of scientists in the elevator at the beginning of the game.
Yes.
He calls for the elevator and it just crashes down like 20 floors with the two guys in there. And I'm just like, oh, I feel like a dick now.
That's what happens, I guess.
There's a scientist that kills a head crab by squishing it with a file cabinet, and he does like a little, yeah, I won, right before a second head crab jumps on top of him. Yeah, there's just a lot of moments in the game where scientists just get absolutely fucked.
And speaking of them getting absolutely fucked by the creatures, let's talk about them. So first, let's mention these head crabs.
Yeah, the head crabs, the mascot monsters of the game. I personally think they're kind of cute. I like the way they approach you as they crawl with their little claw things, their appendages up in the air, and they're like, hey, I'm gonna get you. I'm gonna get you.
Personally, hated those head crabs. Every time that I would heal, there'd be like maybe like two head crabs, and I'm like, oh, that's an easy 1-2 shot. But really, if I don't have ammo in my pistol and I just have my shotgun, the shotgun is so inaccurate.
They are hard to hit at times, especially when they're jumping right at you.
Yeah, and then I get knocked down 20 health, and I'm like, I just got this back.
They definitely take a lot of inspiration from facehuggers from the Alien movies.
Mm-hmm. The way they jump and they possess the scientist bodies, which I found those enemies to be the easiest enemies.
Yeah, the head crab zombies. They certainly have a distinct look about them, because you have the head crab as the head, obviously, but then you also have their hands, which have been elongated into these grotesque bloody claws, and then they also have an open chest cavity lined with teeth.
Mm-hmm.
It's like that scene in The Thing when the doctor tries to operate on someone only for their chest to burst open and chomp his arms off.
I feel like the head crab zombies are definitely iconic in terms of their design.
Alongside Vortigons, I would say, the three-armed alien that shoot lightning, I think them and head crabs are very much the most recognized one. Partially because they're the only aliens from this game that carry over into Half-Life 2.
Well, don't tell me.
Oh man, the head crab zombies in Half-Life 2. I forgot that in this game, they don't speak. They don't have audible voice lines, just kind of grunt and growl like typical monsters. Head crab zombies in Half-Life 2 are way more unsettling because they have like distorted voice lines that if you decipher, it is very unnerving what they're saying.
I really like that, I guess. Just always like the infected still being alive. I feel like the head crabs have definitely just put the consciousness to the subconscious for the humans, pretty much.
In this game, though, they're all scientists, but I think in a few of the expansions, they mix up the head crab zombies, where there's some that have taken over security guards, and I think there's a couple that have taken over the Marines or soldiers that come in later.
What's even worse than a head crab zombie? One with a gun!
Yeah. The head crabs, they're easy enough. They're annoying, but they're easy. But then in come the other Zen aliens. There's the Vortigaunts, as mentioned, and yeah, these guys, they're kind of the foot soldiers of the aliens. They're these three-armed looking guys that can electrify you. A lot of the enemies in this game have their own brief introduction that kind of shows off what they can do. And for Vortigaunts, you approach this door thinking that there's some good supplies in there, and then it starts caving in and there's something banging on the other side, and then it breaks open with a Vortigaunt ready to electrify you.
These Vortigaunts I found very interesting as I was looking up some information about them as well as some fan theories. These Vortigaunts are actually slaves.
Mm-hmm. And you can kind of see that because it looks like they have what kind of looks like shackles and collars on, implying that they are not doing this of their free will.
It's really interesting how they fight too, because like if you shoot at them a couple of times, they'll start running away.
Yeah, the Vortigaunts are enslaved by the Nihilanth. I'm pretty sure that is confirmed in Half-Life 2 that they are enslaved in this game. With that in hindsight, it does make killing them all the more tragic and sad that they don't want to be doing this.
You're basically the equivalent to grunts in the Covenant.
There's other aliens that we'll get to in time, but one other one I want to mention are these weird, I like to call them pug things. They're like these little dogs that run at you.
Yeah.
Their faces are just like, I think they're supposed to be eyes. Like their face is just a bunch of eyes all clustered together like a wasp nest, and that's unsettling to think about.
Why can't I have one as a puppy?
Well, they screech and they hit you with sound waves. Personally, I think head crabs are kind of adorable, but these things I always found annoying. They just rush at you, and since their attack is sound, they're always accompanied by this high-pitched wailing noise, and I just find them annoying.
Oh, I mean, I guess I understand. I personally never found it annoying. I actually thought they were the most cute of the others, because head crabs, to me, they were always kind of
don't get me wrong, I'm sure if head crabs existed in real life, they would be terrifying. They're a Metroid parasite that latch onto your head and turn you into a zombie. But I don't know, I just think they're kind of cuddly looking. I'd buy a plushie of a head crab.
Now, there's actually one more that we do kind of see early game. It's bipedal, but it's got like 3 prongs and it shoots acid.
The Cthulhu dog.
That's what it's called? Okay.
Well, that's what I call it.
All right. Well, the Cthulhu dog. Okay, those 3 prongs in front of it, it's kind of made me reminiscent of Halo zombies.
I think we mentioned that in our episode where a lot of the Flood kind of looked like a mix between Half-Life Zen and Resident Evil zombies.
I really do enjoy their design the most, just because it's simplistic and I guess my nostalgia kicked in.
They're kind of reptilian-like, at least that's how I look at them. They're like mutant crocodiles that spit acid.
And they survive pretty much anywhere. Radioactive wastes, underwater, hot water. They're very durable.
Going back to level design, I think another reason why so much of Half-Life I find calming is because most of the game takes place entirely indoors. You are inside Black Mesa, very tight corridors, but also there's a lot of open chambers and bunkers and hangars and warehouses and all that. There's a lot of variety in environments. You can go through offices, you can go through concrete industrial complexes. There's a few segments that take place outdoors. Those are nice too. I guess I always liked imagining going through all the offices and rooms in Black Mesa, just imagining what the day-to-day routine or job for the people working there is like. Who worked in this office? Imagine having to go through this entire labyrinth maze-like facility just to get to your work desk.
Damn it, now I gotta use the printer on the other side of the base. Gonna take me 20 minutes to get there.
Someone broke the vending machine and sprayed all the cans everywhere. That was another cool thing too. You could also interact with all the vending machines, push all the buttons, smash them open, and cans will fly everywhere. Did you find the microwave Easter egg in the beginning of the game?
No, I did not. Tell me about it.
So, right before shit goes down and it's just still a normal day and Gordon's walking around, you can go into the break room for the scientists and there's a microwave with a casserole in it. And if you keep pressing the microwave buttons, the casserole will overheat and explode. And I think the scientist who was cooking it will be like, "Dear God, what have you done?"
What kind of criminal activity is happening in my workplace?
Hopefully that's the worst thing that happens to that guy today.
Now, speaking of the level design again, I do want to say something. So, first off, the sound design. Whenever I walked through those corridors,
It echoes.
yeah, and I couldn't tell if it was from the echoes or if it was with the music or it was both. But I don't know. I really liked it, at least for my experience. Every time
I think it happened whenever you were in the ventilation, gunshots and stuff always had this sort of what's it called, like a metallic clang to it. The sound bounces off, and that's a really cool detail.
Yeah, and I really enjoyed how you can kind of make music using those sounds.
Yeah, there's a lot to really like about Black Mesa. It's just a really cool environment with a lot of variety in settings. It can go from like I said, from a very typical blue collar office complex to a full-on military Area 51 kind of laboratory look, and I really like that.
I do agree, especially with like hidden doors and stuff. But speaking of doors and stuff, in Black Mesa, they have a lot of parkour areas, which I did like with Valve. It really teaches you how to really utilize parkour. And to be honest, if I didn't play TF2 and learn about crouch jumping, I wouldn't have made it through a lot of these sections.
I forgot how fast Gordon runs in this game. It almost feels like you're sliding on ice at certain points just of how fast you can move.
Mm-hmm.
When you finally unlock the long jump, oh, that is so fun to use.
It is fun. It is very hard to like kind of master at first. And to be honest, I didn't know how to do it until I started crouch jumping like the entire time. It was like that cross between platforming and FPS.
Again, though, it does make me wonder, who designed this facility? Why is there a toxic waste dump right next to where everyone shows up to work?
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if half of Black Mesa's budget is going towards bribing off OSHA.
Those radical ions are really bouncing off those bald heads.
I think it's supposed to be the main lobby area of Black Mesa. It's right before you step outside, you have to get a scientist to unlock the door. It's where you get the laser rifle. I've always liked that section of the game. I don't know why. There's just something about it. I think that's supposed to be the zoology department because you can see that there's a lot of experiments going on with the various aliens like head crabs.
And it kind of makes you feel sad for them. Really, this is the first time that I actually felt sad for the aliens. At first, I was like, this is something that we need to contain. But apparently, it's always been going on. They've just been taking them.
I know we've kind of jumped ahead a little bit, but let's rewind back to the pivotal moment where everything went straight to hell, the resonance cascade.
Okay.
This gave me really big Chernobyl vibes, what goes on here. It's just a normal test. And Gordon, after all those years spent at MIT, his big scientific contribution is to push a cart with a rock in it.
While the scientists sit back in their cozy area, just kind of doing whatever.
Gordon doesn't need to hear this. He's a highly trained professional. He can push a cart forward 10 feet. Yeah, so Gordon, he is tasked with pushing a Zen crystal into...
A teleporter?
Yeah, it's some type of laser device. I forget what they call it exactly, but basically what Black Mesa was doing is they were experimenting with teleportation, and I want to know where they got the Zen crystal, because it's already there, and I don't think it's ever explained how they got their hands on this alien artifact. I think a common fan theory is that the G-Man gave it to them, but I don't know if that's the angle Valve was going for.
I mean, that would make sense as the G-Man being the one to put it there, considering it seems like he was scouting for people to employ, I guess.
He does recruit another person in one of the expansions, Adrian Shepard, but I don't think Shepard didn't prove himself as well as Freeman, so it just says he is detained and not hired.
Now, with the crystal, once it makes contact with the laser, it starts going haywire.
Open wide, oh green earth.
Yeah, and Gordon is now being transported in different areas of Zen.
It's one of the few times the player doesn't have direct control.
Yeah, and we just get these flashes of all these different creatures in their environments on Zen. And really, I do like that, how we're just kind of like in this otherworldly type of plane.
Right.
And it feels like they can't see us. I don't think they really acknowledge us. They just kind of like look around and stuff, going about their day. So it's kind of like astral projection, I guess.
Yeah,
but then we get zorbed back and the whole thing is going haywire. Lasers are shooting out. Scientists are just kind of panicking. Now we have a portal open into Zen. That's when we start seeing the head crabs turn people into head crab zombies.
I guess I interpret the story of Half-Life as the folly and arrogance of mankind. And whether or not it was what Valve was going for, I don't think my comparison to Chernobyl was entirely unwarranted. Obviously, the difference being that was a real-world tragedy, whereas with Half-Life it's completely fictional, but in any case, it's still the story of scientists and, in general, people in power, messing around with forces beyond human control, or at the very least forces that we don't fully understand, and subsequently reaping what they sow. It was a step forward that humanity was not prepared to take.
Now we are all sons of bitches.
And I know that there is some higher power forces behind the scenes pushing humanity in that direction with Black Mesa. This is a cautionary tale of humans obtaining a power that they weren't ready for or shouldn't be using at all.
And the crowbar. Oh man, do I love that crowbar.
Yeah. Another recognizable piece of Half-Life is the crowbar. It is a very interesting choice as a main melee weapon. How many other games can you think of where you can wield a crowbar?
Not many. And to be honest, I love the sound effects.
I think in GTA 5 you can find a crowbar, and I'm pretty sure it's meant to be an Easter egg to Half-Life because the color is the same as the one in Half-Life. Going with a crowbar is a very interesting choice for a weapon, and I think it's also a part of the whole blue-collar industrial kind of vibe that Half-Life is going for. How Gordon, again, he is not a soldier or really a hero. He's just a guy stuck in a situation, so he has to make do with the tools at his disposal. It can be used as a weapon, sure, but it really just adds to that sense of civilianness to it all.
Yeah, and really, I use that crowbar a lot. And it surprisingly does a lot of damage, which I like how it's viable, where you have to get up close and, start whacking stuff. But really, can we talk about how fast Gordon whacks people with that crowbar?
You do pick up guns not long after it, so it's not super you don't use it too long for direct combat, although I think it's useful for taking down head crabs. I mainly used it for breaking boxes and crates and raiding supplies and all that, or breaking down glass doors to get through them. I didn't really use it for combat directly since I had better options at that point, but
really I think is on course in terms of you breaking boxes with a crowbar.
There's a lot of great weapons in Half-Life. A lot of them are the typical FPS ones. Again, taking after Doom, we get a pistol, a shotgun, although I do like the shotgun. According to the Half-Life wiki, it's called the Spaz 12 that it's based off of.
I just know like the slang term is riot shotgun. To be honest, I always found it pretty cool design just because, I feel like if you one-hand, even though that ricochet is going to break your wrist, if you one-hand it and you're just that badass and you fire it in front of a zombie's face, you're officially a league above others.
Like you said, the sound design in this game is just so nice. Reloading the shotgun is very satisfying to the ears.
I do agree. One gun that's really satisfying though is the revolver.
Oh yeah, the revolver. The revolver and the crossbow, they just feel so like there's weight to the revolver and crossbow whenever you equip them. It just feels like these are heavy weapons. And I know, you can say, imagining the guns as heavy, if you've ever held a shotgun in real life, it's not exactly light.
They pack a punch.
The revolver and crossbow, they just feel weightier to the other weapons. I think the revolver can one or two shot most enemies in the game. The crossbow can one shot.
I wish they gave me just a little bit more because I wanted to be like a Western gunslinger in Zen, just like high noon.
Funny you mention that. I think in Overwatch, they specifically wanted Cassidy's revolver in Overwatch to feel like the revolver in Half-Life. The crossbow is also a really cool weapon. You pick it up when you have to go against the shark thing. I think it's called an icanthosaur or something like that. It's the water thing.
Like that. It's the annoying one.
Yeah, that one is so annoying. But it is cool how you find the crossbow and then you go into the shark cage to fight against the icanthosaur. It's a cool little sequence. The crossbow is cool, but it takes forever to reload.
Poor science guy that got eaten by that, though.
While we're here, there's one line from the scientist who tells you about the Icanthosaur that really stood out to me. He says that Black Mesa apparently found the Icanthosaur swimming around in the Challenger Deep, and that's where it came from. But then he also says that he doubts it ever swam in Earth's waters prior to a week ago. And I just thought to myself, a week ago? How long has Gordon been down here for? And that just made me start questioning what the whole timeline of the game is here.
Yeah, I gotta go with maybe it definitely does take a couple of days, and maybe some days like pass as we're down below.
I have a couple interpretations. One, when the resonance cascade happened and Gordon was knocked unconscious briefly, I think it's implied that he was unconscious for longer than you think, like maybe several days. But at the same time, I don't think that's quite true, because when you re-arrive in Black Mesa, everything feels like maybe only like an hour or two at most. Like everything, the disaster feels like it just happened. Like this is all happening in real time.
Right.
The thing is, you can go through the game in real time. Unless you just stop and stare at a corner for a week, it's not taking a week to get to that point in the game.
Mm-hmm.
What makes it even more confusing is when you first get to the surface outside, it's nighttime, but when you get back there a few chapters later, it's day. So what was the passage of time there? And then there's a point where Gordon Freeman is knocked out again by the military, and we don't know how long he was knocked out for. And they just toss his body in a trash compactor, New Hope style, and very generous of them to leave the stacked crates in there in an ascending order, allowing Freeman to escape.
Yeah, they like to give people a helping hand when they're down.
Let's talk about the military in this game, because so a little bit into the game, a security guard is like, hey, did you hear? The government is deploying the Marines to come save us. It's all over. The day is saved. And then the military shows up and just starts executing everyone in Black Mesa, because they're not here to save you. They're here to clean up and cover up everything.
Mm-hmm. It's time for a little hush-hush in Black Mesa.
Yeah. So now Gordon has to fight between the aliens and the military.
And the aliens and military actually do fight each other. Like, if you don't fire at them, they won't fire at you back because they are too focused in their fight. And I enjoy that. It gives a sense of realism, I guess.
There are a lot of moments in the game where you'll just stumble upon a group of Marines shooting in the middle of a firefight with Vortigaunts or something.
Mm-hmm. It's beautiful. They throw those grenades. They're like, grenade, and then they toss it, and it's like on your exact location. So as soon as you hear that,
if you toss a grenade at the soldiers, some of the time they'll just say, oh shit, and then blow up. I really enjoyed the sound, the voice lines of the soldiers that, I guess, it's not distorted. What's it called? Like, not scrambled per se.
It's radio static, I guess.
Basically, the soldiers are speaking through very heavily modified, encoded voice filters, and it just sounds really cool to me, that deep, menacing voice.
Yeah.
Also, they can't spell Freeman right, because there's a couple points where you'll encounter graffiti on the walls. It's like, surrender Freeman, and Freeman is spelled wrong.
Freeman.
My ass is heavy.
It is very interesting that the military in this game are not saviors. They are just another faction to contend and fight against.
And I do love that. And basically, the more you progress, it feels like a natural progression in terms of notoriety, because it's with both sides. So as you kind of go through the levels, and at first, it's just kind of like, oh, you happen to run into them. They're not ready for you. But then they start sort of ambushing you, I guess. And they're ready for you, and they know you're coming, and they are more tactical.
By the end of the game, the military is just cutting their losses, and they're pulling out of Black Mesa to, I'm pretty sure they just straight up nuke the facility at the end of the game. As the soldiers are pulling out, you can hear on the radio their last orders like, forget about Freeman, let's just get the hell out of here. So Freeman has become infamous among them.
Forget Freeman. Okay, can we talk about one level that I think it happens before this, just before the Forget Freeman? It's called Surface Tension.
Oh god, this one went on forever. I swear, like half the game was in surface tension.
It took so long, and it felt like, okay, this was the point where I actually took breaks in Half-Life, because before then I was just bulldozing through it because I enjoyed like the sense of big progression.
I was able to get through the first few chapters in one sitting, but surface tension, yeah, this is a long chapter.
I want to say I got through at least 6 or 7 on my first playthrough, and that took only 2 hours. years, and I want to say it's one of the longest levels. It really...
Well, the story of it is Gordon has left the main Black Mesa facility and he's heading to the Lambda complex in order to solve this, which is a separate facility to the rest of Black Mesa, and it is a long distance from the rest of the complex.
Mm-hmm. And not to mention, you got a helicopter on your ass, and boy, that helicopter was annoying. I had to look up on a guide on how to safely get rid of the helicopter just so I can actually just enjoy.
You just blow it up with the rocket launcher.
Yeah, well, I didn't have the rocket launcher at that time. I actually had the Tau gun.
The Tau cannon. That's the laser rifle.
Yeah, that's a laser rifle for y'all. And if you held right click and you let go, it fired off a stronger beam. And after I think 3 or 4 hits, the helicopter will go down.
The rocket launcher is really cool because it's motion tracking, where after you fire the rocket, it goes wherever you're pointing at. So you can guide the missile. And I think that's really fun.
Can you imagine, okay, so if you fire this rocket at a far off distance, far enough to get almost close to off the map, and then aim it back to where you want it to go, and you just stand there dodging the bullets, can you imagine following that rocket as it's on its path back to where you're pointing at? That would be actually kind of a fun video to see, just to kind of see how that mechanic would work.
Well, I mean, in Metal Gear Solid, you directly guided the rockets after you fire them in a little mini game kind of thing, like a drone or something. So
I guess what I was thinking of was, in Halo, you can lock onto stuff. If it's like a Banshee or something, you can fire it, but even if the Banshee dodges it, I actually used to watch Achievement Hunters Fails of the Week from Rooster Teeth when I was a kid. Yeah, you remember that. There would be firing off a rocket, and the Banshee would barrel roll out of the way, but the rocket is still tracking it in the map, and it's just comes around and boom.
Now that you mention Halo, the Needler gun, the Hornet gun here in Half-Life, I'm like, okay, I think Halo, the Needler, and the Hornet gun are basically the same concept. They fire little projectiles that lock onto targets even if they go around a corner or obstacle or something. It just stood out to me as something very similar.
And also the Hornet gun can apparently around corners that the machine guns would be, and they just lock onto them, and it's great for easy kills of those sentry guns.
I would just chuck grenades into them. Man, those sentry guns were annoying, but they were fun, especially in the segments where you could take control of a sentry gun or even a tank in that one section and just blow up everything. That was fun.
Spam the hell out of it.
But the Hornet gun, I think it's also the only weapon that regenerates ammo.
Yeah, so the Hornet gun didn't do a lot of damage, I feel, but that's what it was. It was low damage, but you never had to have ammo for it. So if you were ever low on ammo, you at least always had a projectile weapon.
Right. Then there was the Gluon gun, which is a laser flamethrower. It just fires a death ray, basically, and vaporizes everything in sight.
Ooh, oh boy, I loved using that gun. That was actually probably my favorite gun, just because I could be like, oh, you're dead. Oh, he's gone.
I saved all the ammo for the Gluon gun for the final boss fight, and it made it a lot easier. One other weird weapon I want to throw in is the snark bug. So the snark is this weird little beetle cockroach alien thing that you find. If you find a nest of them, you can pick them up and use them as grenade projectiles or weapons. Attack whoever you throw them at.
Also, be careful with that, because I tried using that on the final boss, but if they didn't land on him and they landed near me, they would attack me.
There was one part where I was stuck in a vent and there was a whole bunch of snarks in there. I just could not kill them in time, and there's nowhere to go in the vent, and I just kept dying to that several times.
I think I just saw them all, and then I chucked the grenade in there, and that's what kind of just blew them all up. I was lucky to have a grenade still.
And then there's the barnacles. Those were the aliens that would attach themselves to ceilings and try to slurp up prey with their tendril tongues. They don't really pose much of a threat to Gordon because they don't move around and they're pretty easy enough to avoid. But I always took the time out of my day to kill them whenever I could. Yeah, I know it was a bit of a waste of ammo, but what can I say? It's just so satisfying clearing out an entire infestation of barnacles. It's like you're an exterminator.
You can even lead NPCs under them, and they'll actually bring them up, and I always found that animation to be so cool.
And when they swallow their prey, they'll just spit out their bones and viscera everywhere. Gross. I think in Opposing Force, you can detach a barnacle and use its tongue as a grappling hook.
Oh, wow. They really got innovative.
There's also the Zen grunts, the main soldiers they're the ones with the hornet guns attached. They're the tanks of the main alien forces, but as the game goes on, I kind of found them pretty easy to deal with. Just a couple bursts from the shotgun or the assault rifle, and they're down for the count.
They at first were intimidating, but really they weren't that big of a deal. I mean, it took 6 shots with the shotgun. I know, because I counted. But I think with the assault rifle, it only took like 10, which was like 1/5 of your clip.
And then there's the most dangerous of the Zen aliens. I guess you could call them a mini boss of sorts, the Gargantuas.
Right.
They were these big hulking monstrosities that would just demolish everything in their path, and I don't think you can kill them through conventional means. So they served more as forces of nature rather than typical enemies.
Really the first one, I didn't think it was part of Zen. I thought it was more military-like just because it looked very robotic. But once I realized it was from the Zen world, it shows that they're technologically advanced, just like us.
I wouldn't say technologically advanced. I think their biology is very aggressive, I guess you could say. They're capable of abilities that are very threatening to humans. But yeah, the Gargantua, the first one you encounter they're pretty dangerous because even beyond just their pure physically imposing size, they also have flamethrowers or plasma throwers for their weapons, so they'll just scorch you to death.
Yeah, and it's pretty quick, so pretty much once you get hit by it, you might as well just accept your fate and retry.
Right. There's a segment towards the end of the game during surface tension where you can kill a Gargantua with calling in airstrikes left over by the military. I really like that section because you have to use this interactive little map to pinpoint where to drop the airstrike, and you can also use it to blow up a path and clear your way for you. So I thought that was a nice little way to shake up the gameplay.
It was a nice way, but man, that part, like, to me was kind of annoying just because the controls wasn't like, oh, I could just like take control of this and then just WASD to where I want it to hit. But instead it was 2 buttons. If you hit interact with one button, it will move left, but like you have to hold it down. I was like kind of freaking out. I would like press the E and it wouldn't move. It would just keep on doing it, and I'm just like, why am I not getting it? I got this thing chasing me all the damn time and I can't fire on it.
He just wants a hug. Let's talk about the alien in the blast pit, the huge tentacle claw things.
Oh yes, those. We totally forgot about those. They were like 2 tentacles, and I believe
there were 3
later. Oh, were there 3? Okay,
it was like really long crab legs. That's what I thought of. This is a great example of Half-Life's level design. It encourages you to think in the right direction without telling you explicitly what to do. It throws out all these like weapons or items or the way enemies operate, and it makes you think, okay, how am I going to go about this? Well, there's a bunch of grenades around here, so that has to be a clue to something. It just makes you approach your surroundings more methodically or more... Valve's entire motto for making Half-Life was power to the player, literally. They wanted everything to be within the player's control. Everything that happens in Half-Life has to react to the player's actions, and I think that's a very admirable goal for game development.
Mm-hmm. Oh, what would you know? I love it when developers will engage and not just simply put out a product.
But the blast pit monster it wasn't really a boss fight because it's just hanging there clawing around, but you have to turn on the rocket that's right above it in order to burn it to death. So you have to go all around Black Mesa. It's basically sending you on all these fetch quests to activate parts of the rocket, and it's oh so cathartic when you finally burn that fucker to death.
Well, like, to me, like, it was definitely kind of, I wouldn't want to be under the claw is what I'm saying. So it's kind of like the blind person kind of feeling out the room. So you had to chuck grenades and stuff in order to get around it.
Yeah, chucking grenades to lure it away from you. After you vaporize it, you dive into the pit it was in, and you see its corpse at the bottom of the pool, so you actually get a good look at it.
Yeah, man, was it
it's like the squid
annoying
looking
to
thing.
keep running on back into it.
Also, did you notice that when you were crawling through the pipe, right before you see the first fighter jet, the Valve intro sound plays?
Mm-hmm. And I gotta say, though, going back to that Valve song, like, that brought me so many memories from first booting up TF2 because that was the first time I ever heard it. And every time that I hear it, I seize TF2.
It's a very attention-grabbing sound. It's that very boom noise.
Oh, yes.
We haven't mentioned the music yet. There's not a whole lot of music in this game, only in a few select sequences, but I like it. It's got that energetic EDM sound to it. I think the first song that plays is when you equip the HEV suit.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
While we're on the subject again of sound design, I really like the sound of the med kit and the HEV recharge stations. That it's just nice, very therapeutic, just doo-doo, doo-doo, doo-doo noise, or the long monotonous drone of the HEV recharging itself.
It's very... okay, I love those shields, man. Those shields save lives. If you don't have shields, it's kind of hard to progress. But if you have shields, the military basically does little to no damage to you in terms of their guns compared to everything else. Whereas, I believe the ones who are, slaves or whatever that shock you, I believe they will do considerable amount to your shield since it's an electrical attack.
The Black Mesa loudspeaker announcer voice, the very deep robotic voice, I find that very soothing to listen to. I know it's meant to come across as very robotic and detached and, I guess, dystopian and very corporate, but I like it.
Mm-hmm.
Even the HEV suit that talks back to you, HEV energy depleted, minor fracture detected. I just like that.
Detected. In critical condition.
Again, there's just something about the atmosphere and vibes of this game that are just so weirdly calming.
Mm-hmm. It's definitely what I feel really makes the game feel lived in terms of giving everything character.
Yeah. Valve really wanted to go for implicit storytelling throughout the game because the story of the game is very rarely, if ever, outright explained. It's up to you to piece together based on context clues and events that are happening right before you.
Now, we have spent a lot of time on Black Mesa, but I kind of want to start getting into Zen in Nihilith.
So, to get to Zen, you arrive at the Lambda complex, and the scientists there say, okay, we built this teleporter that'll take us to the alien dimension. You have to kill the leader of the aliens that's keeping the portal open, the Nihilinth, or Nihilinth? I don't know how to pronounce it, but the Nihilinth.
Nihilith?
Yeah, something like that. So Gordon proceeds to jump into the teleporter, taking him straight to Zen, and, well, Garrett, how about you describe Zen to us? Go on, paint us a pretty picture about this alien landscape before us.
Oh boy. Alright. Well, so first things off is that Zen, how can I describe it? As a giant hairball with spikes. That's what it resembles.
Yeah, it's a very bizarre, I don't want to say disgusting, but it is an unusual looking, alien world. It has to be expected. It's alien. It's
brown.
It feels very organic. Nothing in it feels artificial. Everything feels like it's a living creature.
Even the pool that where you can stand in these shining pools that are down there, they heal you back.
It feels very electric, I guess you could say, which fits, given that a lot of the abilities of the Zen aliens are electric or energy based.
This is the time when you utilize your long jump if you haven't been practicing. Oh, by the way, we do meet, just before we get into the portal, there are these aliens, these flying aliens that appear for the first time. They would fly around and they would shoot tiny energy orbs at you, and that's how they would damage you. And even though they were kind of annoying, if you had the revolver you could one-shot them in the air, which was always satisfying. It was like duck hunting or something.
They basically look like mini Nihilinths, or at least to me, they look like the Flatwoods monster, the same alien that inspired the aliens in Majora's Mask as well.
Now, that's what... Oh, sorry, were you going to say something?
I was just going to say, the entire chapter set in Zen, I think it was supposed to be much longer because there were a lot of other alien enemies in the game's files that were not utilized, like Mr. Friendly, which is this very phallic looking creature.
I guess I never seen the hidden files of those enemies. I did feel though that the second part, after surface tension, all of the missions were much shorter and definitely felt more rushed to the end.
Yeah, like I said, I'm pretty sure Valve wanted Zen to go on as a longer section of the game, but they just had to cut a lot of it out. One thing they didn't cut out, though, is the Go Narc.
Oh.
Basically, someone at Valve went up to Gabe and was like, hey man, why don't we put a giant testicle on a 20-foot tall spider? And Gabe was like, you're promoted. And that's how we got the Go Narc. It is the first time I encountered it, I'm just like, that's just a ball sack on a spider.
Yeah, so this thing is like the mother of head crabs.
Yeah, it's where head crabs come from.
They are not hiding it that it's literally just a ball sack, because the little enemies that spawn are just mini head crabs, but they look like sperm. That's what they look like. They're white.
This goes back into my interpretation that I feel like the lack of women in Half-Life is perhaps intentional. What if this is all just a metaphor for masculinity and how men have always been pushing for more power, more authority? You're fighting the overloads. And finally,
you're causing a
man has
effect.
encountered a force. Anyway.
Yeah.
The Nihilinth is a big baby.
Yes, bib.
It is a big, giant-headed baby that has psychic powers.
Now, this thing is very grotesque. It has 3 arms just like it, but for some reason it looks like the third arm is sewed into its chest. And not to mention, it has the body shape of somebody who doesn't get out a lot. That's for sure.
It looks like someone cut it in half at the waist, and it just has tentacles or entrails just hanging below it.
And I do like how it kind of talks to us throughout.
Throughout Zen, Gordon keeps hearing this weird voice. It's kind of uncanny valley to me, because I swear, if you listen closely, you can kind of make out what it's saying, but I don't know if that was just paraphernalia for me or what.
No, I actually heard, stay away, get away, leave, and then also, they hurt us. And I'm just like, holy shit, this is fucking weird.
If I had a nickel for every final boss alien that very much invoked images of newborn babies or abortions, I'd have 2 nickels, which isn't a lot, but it's weird that it's happened twice.
Yeah. It is very interesting, I will say. Especially with the rocket that's shoved up in its ass. Okay, so you know how everything's organic?
Yeah.
To me, that shows that something that doesn't rely on organics has done something that is kind of like a tragedy, I guess. And really, this fight is kind of annoying to me.
Yeah, because every now and then the Nihilinth will teleport Freeman to a random place, and you have to find a way back to the boss arena. And every time, I just kept imagining the Nihilinth being like, oh, finally, that asshole's gone. Oh, god damn it, here he is again.
And not to mention, in the boss fight, the different areas that he would teleport you to were kind of annoying.
That one where you had to keep going up and landing on all the different levels, climbing the spire, and then there's all the flying aliens shooting at you the whole time and you just can't hit them. Yeah, that part was annoying, but there were times where it kind of allowed you an opportunity to heal up or reload your weapons, so that was a bit appreciative.
Yeah, and really, there's bodies of people from our world there. It shows how many people has failed to take down Nihilinth.
Yeah, there's a lot of other humans wearing HEV suits with helmets. Gordon is running around without a helmet. OSHA is going to file a fine at Black Mesa. It's just going to be a whole mess. But yeah, a couple of them really made it pretty far into Zen.
I found a way to cheese the boss. Like, there was this one time when it would teleport you for the 3rd or 4th time, and there'd be the mechanical monster with the fire again. That thing always killed me, so I went behind a rock. Yes.
But yes, we finally defeat the Nihilinth and shut down the portal.
Yay!
The Earth is saved. Never mind the fact that the military just nuked Black Mesa, so sucks for everyone else in there. But then, Gordon Freeman.
Now, throughout the game, we have discussed earlier in this podcast about the G-Man. The G-Man can be seen throughout a lot of small sections inside Black Mesa, and I believe, is there one in Zen too?
I don't know, but I do know, yeah, he shows up throughout Black Mesa at seemingly random places, but he's always like in the corner of your eye, or he's always in places Gordon cannot get to. Like he's behind a glass door, or he's on the other side of a massive hangar that you can't run to in time. But I noticed that he's always sort of guiding Gordon. He's always standing in areas of interest, I guess you could say. Because there's one point early on where he's on a catwalk, and if you go back to that catwalk where he was standing, you'll find out that there's a closet full of ammo and medical supplies in there. So he's kind of hinting to Gordon, whenever you see the G-Man, pay attention to where he's at, because it's probably useful.
Now, this is the interesting thing. After we defeat the Nihilith, it kind of is in the same manner that the crystal breaks in the past. Like, remember how the crystal broke and it's like green and yellow lightning? Well, with that green and yellow lightning, it appears again after you kill Nihilith. Really, I do like it when video games call back just to kind of like show you of how far you've progressed through visual imagery.
Well, I was going to say, the Zen crystal that Gordon pushed into the machine that caused the whole resonance cascade, I'm pretty sure the crystals in the Nihilith arena are the same crystals.
Yes.
So that's where it came from. Again, makes me wonder how Black Mesa got their hands on it.
So going back to kind of like, this is kind of like going into sort of fan theories, because this story is very vague, and I like it that it's kind of vague, but it gives you enough to where you can kind of connect the pieces yourselves.
Right. The G-Man shows up, and he teleports Gordon to this space between spaces. He's back on the cable car, but it's in the middle of, it looks like hyperspace from Star Wars. There's a bunch of light zooming everywhere. And the G-Man explains to Gordon that because he's killed the Nihilith, the G-Man and his employers have taken an interest in Gordon's abilities. So he offers Gordon a job application.
Oh man, better say no to that, right?
Well, if you do that, then you just die, basically.
Yeah, I saw both endings.
But the real ending is Gordon accepts by jumping into the teleport thing with the G-Man, and at the end it says, Gordon Freeman, hired, awaiting assignment. But the G-Man, so I love characters, this archetype in stories. It's very much like the giant in Twin Peaks, or I guess Q from Star Trek is kind of an example. Not quite, but it's this character who is so mysterious and otherworldly. Both we, the audience, and the characters have no idea what to make of this guy, the G-Man. We don't know, what is he capable of? He is very clearly not human. He looks human, but he can appear in multiple places at once. He disappears out of the corner of your eye. There's no explanation of how he got there. And clearly he's in contact with a higher power of some sort. I guess at the very least mind illusion powers, or maybe he can twist reality to a certain extent. Point is, we don't know who or what the G-Man is. We don't know what he wants. He's neither ally or foe to Gordon, or humanity for that matter. He's not aligned with anybody. So what is he? What does he want? Who does he work for? There's just so many questions about the G-Man, and I just adore this character in stories. It doesn't always work for every story, obviously, but the archetype of the mysterious supernatural being that you don't know what they want or what they're capable of. It just drives the mind crazy thinking of all these theories and possible explanations to who they are. The G-Man represents all of that in such a perfectly well-suited government package. I want to hear your theory, though, Garrett. What's your take on the G-Man? What do you think of him?
So, I feel that the G-Man is part of the corporation that is definitely a futuristic civilization and has appeared to us, the player, and Gordon as a human being, not only for infiltration, but also so we are not mind blown by its actual presence. It's in the form that we can actually comprehend. And really, I feel that this was one of its experiments. It wanted us humans and Zen to interact.
That's more or less how I interpret it. I think the G-Man, or his employers rather, were very much pushing Zen and Earth to collide with one another for one reason or another.
And I feel that Gordon just happened to be a radical that they took interest in.
The right man in the wrong place can make all the difference in the world, Mr. Freeman.
Mm-hmm. Gotta agree.
I want to know, Garrett, again, going along this this conspiracy theory train, if you can put your tinfoil hat on, what are your predictions for Half-Life 2? I just want to know what you think Half-Life 2 is going to be like from here.
Okay, so, this is what I'm thinking. In Half-Life 2, we will probably get to know a little bit about where G-Man kind of comes from, or his employers. And really, there are others that are kind of like us, like that have also caught the attention of G-Man. But the G-Man is not just one entity, but is an entire entity. Just like we just happen to see that part of its form, I guess. Whereas its others are spread throughout. Considering there's like different sort of dimensions at least, or maybe just far off galaxies, maybe it's sort of like a Men in Black kind of thing.
That's what the name G-Man is meant to invoke. It's a very Men in Black kind of vibe.
Mm-hmm. And I feel that at first, we'll do some missions for them, but then we're just kind of like, well, we don't want to be here because it feels like imprisonment. Well, then some others who also feel the same way, we kind of try to escape. And that's the whole story of Half-Life 2. But we also learn more about what was behind the Black Mesa incident.
Interesting. There are just so many question marks about the G-Man, and I just love this character as in concept and in execution. And yeah, that's the original Half-Life. Now, there were 2 expansion packs made after the game release. There was Opposing Force in 1999 and Blue Shift in 2001, both made by Gearbox, the same studio that would later go on to do the Borderlands games.
Oh, wow.
So I guess you can consider them non-canon since they weren't made by Valve. And I think Opposing Force, there's another race of aliens in Opposing Force that show up. They're called Race X or something like that. I mean, they're basically just reskins of the aliens in Half-Life, so they're not that different or anything, but they never show up again, so I think they're non-canonical. But I've never played Blue Shift myself. I have played Opposing Force, and that one's fun. You play as Adrian Shepard. He's one of the soldiers that are sent in by the military to clean up Black Mesa, and he ends up getting separated from his unit and has to make his way through Black Mesa himself. I think halfway through, if I remember correctly, halfway through Opposing Force, you are like right behind Gordon as he jumps into the teleporter to Zen,
cool.
and you just miss him. Like you see him from the back, and it's like, look, it's Gordon Freeman's stunt double. And at the end of Opposing Force, Adrian Shepard is picked up once again by the G-Man, but he says, we'll keep you as a backup in case Gordon doesn't work out, essentially. So instead of saying hired, it just says detained. And then Blue Shift, while I haven't played it myself, you play as one of the security guards of Black Mesa, Barney Calhoun, or Calhoun? And in fact, that's the security guard you see at the very beginning, the one who's locked out of his office and he can't open the door. That's Barney.
I guess that's why you mentioned it. What about that guy?
Yeah, I want to know his story. But yeah, again, though, I haven't played Blue Shift myself, so I can't speak much about it. But I will say, Barney does show up again in Half-Life 2, so there's a little bit of continuity there for you. So I guess Blue Shift is canon, but not Opposing Force, but maybe they both are. Either way, Opposing Force does add interesting weapons. Instead of a crowbar, you have 2 melee weapons. You get a monkey wrench and a combat knife.
Sounds pretty stereotypical if you ask me. I kind of like the crowbar.
I realize now that Opposing Force is basically just Half-Life, but I feel like it's just the more traditional FPS take on Half-Life, where you're playing as an actual soldier and everything. There's also a lot of really cool alien weapons you get. Like I said, you can equip a barnacle and use it as a grappling hook. And then finally, the last expansion was Half-Life Decay, released in 2001 alongside the PS2 port. This one was a little different in that it was more of a co-op experience in which 2 players can control the 2 protagonists, the aforementioned Gina Cross and Colette Green. And it's just nice seeing some women representation in an FPS game. I feel like that doesn't happen very often outside of Valve games. And then in 2020, this is very interesting, we got a full fan-made remake of Half-Life called Black Mesa, although I'm pretty sure it was in early access for several years beforehand. I remember seeing it floating around on Steam for the longest time. But yeah, Black Mesa, this is just, wow, talk about a dedicated fan base right here. They remade the entire original Half-Life from the ground up in a modern engine.
Oh, wow.
And I'm also pretty sure Valve themselves gave them their official blessing, so there you go.
Well, they must have did a great job. I guess I'll have to check it out because I mean, I wouldn't mind playing Half-Life again.
Yeah, Black Mesa, it's one of those games that's been in my Steam library for like ever. I bought it when it came out and I just haven't gotten around to playing it. I respect the dedication and effort that went into it, and I'm sure it's a great remake. I just always prefer the original to me, not necessarily nostalgia.
It's okay, Grandpa, go back to bed.
Since we're here, I might as well talk about my personal history with Half-Life. So, the first game especially is one of those games that I always associate with a specific time in my life. In this case, it's freshman year of high school, because when I got into high school, that's when I really started getting into PC gaming. That's when I got my first gaming laptop, and I know, all you hardcore PC fans out there, I know. But anyway, I made my Steam account, and I bought the orange box alongside the original Half-Life and Portal 2. It was all Valve. I just played nothing but Valve games for like the first year or so of PC gaming for me. Valve and Half-Life especially, they just feel like the ambassadors of PC gaming. And I just heavily associate playing Half-Life with being 14. It's early summer. And yeah, it's just one of those games that, well, I wouldn't necessarily say it's in my top games of all time per se. It is a game that I've always enjoyed, and it's a game that's always left its mark on me. It's a game that's had very much a lasting impression. And not just on me, but game development as a whole, as mentioned. Its influence on FPS games can be felt today. Much like how Doom perfected FPS games for the time, Half-Life took it to the next level. Every FPS game that's come out since then can trace its influence to Half-Life one way or another, whether intentionally or not. Half-Life just raised the crowbar, on storytelling, on immersion in game development. Not so much in other genres, but especially in first-person shooters. I think Half-Life's influence is clear to see. I think its evidence speaks for itself, in my opinion. And what about you, Garrett? Let's wrap this up with your overall take on Half-Life.
Okay, sure. So, I gotta say, I went into this game and you told me, Chase, that I would like it. And I gotta say, you were right. I really thoroughly enjoyed this game. I couldn't put it down the first time I played it. Only surface tension gave me a break. But other than that, being able to move around so fast and freely while also running, gunning, and everything, I don't know. To me, it was just that fun. I felt like my gaming experience has increased by learning about this game and playing through it. I have always heard about its references and stuff, but I'm glad that now I can say I get those references.
Half-Life is just one of those games that has always been, I guess, a sacred title to PC gamers, because it was PC. Yeah, there were console ports, but it was always a PC franchise first and foremost. It's something that for a lot of PC gamers, they hold very dear to their heart. Like I said, I know I do. And Half-Life, alongside Portal, Valve games in general are just synonymous with the PC side of gaming. They're not experiences you can really get on console, at least not to the same level as on PC. That's the platform they were made for. And I do think that Half-Life 1, it holds up remarkably well. There's very little issue I have with the gameplay. The movement does take a bit getting used to, and the gun combat is a little rudimentary by modern standards, but again, it is so groundbreaking and it ages so phenomenally well. Also, this is just going on a side tangent, but another thing I'll always associate with playing Half-Life back in the day was immediately after I played it, I discovered Freeman's Mind on, I think it was uploaded to YouTube at the time. That is a blast from the internet past right there. So, you don't know about Freeman's Mind, do you?
Nope.
So, it was a Machinima series. It was basically, I think you can consider it a precursor to Let's Plays or nowadays Twitch streaming. It was basically a guy playing through Half-Life as the character of Gordon Freeman. So it's him playing through Half-Life as Gordon. So you're getting Gordon's thoughts on everything.
Well,
and
that's an interesting way.
His interpretation of Gordon is basically Archer, Sterling Archer.
Wow.
When he picks up the crowbar, he's like, finally, I can beat the shit out of people now. Yeah, it was just a fun little series that just heightened my attachment to the first Half-Life game. And Freeman's Mind, as a series in general, it's just this relic of a bygone era of content creation on the internet. You just don't see that type of stuff anymore. And I know that while Half-Life itself came out in the late 90s, I'll always associate it with that 2000s era of internet culture, the time when I first played it. The bygone days of Penny Arcade, VG Cats, Homestar Runner, Red vs. Blue, Calvin and Hobbes the series, if anybody remembers that. It's what I call early internet nerd culture, I guess you could say. Like, that's kind of subsided these days as the Zoomer generation has taken over and tastes have changed, but the era of the internet I was growing up on, to 14-year-old Chase, Half-Life was one of those games that it's one of those things that felt like you had to be, I guess, in the know to know about. Like, you're not gonna go into a GameStop and you're gonna see Half-Life on the shelf. No. If you wanted to play Half-Life, you had to be a true gamer. You had to go on Steam forums and ask for suggestions, and they'd be like, hey, have you heard of this obscure underground hit called Half-Life? Of course you haven't, you console peasant.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Hopefully our viewers know what we're talking about.
It's definitely not obscure by any means, especially not nowadays. It's very well known. But yeah, it's just one of those games that if you ask someone who's really into gaming, PC gaming especially, they'll always suggest, oh, have you given Half-Life a try? I think it holds up pretty well. Just one of those type of things. Bit of a shame Justin wasn't able to join us on this one, though.
All right, well, I think that's it, Chase. I am ready to clock out.
And now, on to the end of show notes. If you want to get into contact with us, you can email us at backwardscompatiblepod@gmail.com, or you can leave us a review on your podcast listening platform of choice. Thank you for listening.
If Ghost Justin is out there, thank you, Ghost Justin. All right, well...
Rise and shine, Mr. Freeman. I creased your J's.
Ugh, you're gonna pay for that.